I think our biggest act of resistance is love and is connection and is leaning into it. And despite everything, trying to have as much of that as we can.
Hi, and welcome to Queer Vision. You'll notice that Chloe is not here right now. My name is Becca. I'm going to be your only host today. That is why you are sitting in the corner next to my bookshelf. But today, I interviewed Chelsea. She is a therapist. She is amazing and very insightful, and she's a mother of some neurodivergent children. So she gave us some little conversations about how she has navigated some changes in the world and what she advises some of her queer patients to do. Now, she does run a queer only practice. So if you are interested in that, it is in Cary, and she will tell us the name at the end because I definitely forget what it's called and I'm so sorry. Okay. Anyway, please listen on. You will get a lot out of this one, I promise. Enjoy. Hello again. Okay, so go ahead and introduce yourself and your pronouns and tell us what you do.
Sure. I am Chelsea Johnson. I have she, her pronouns, and I am a licensed marriage and family therapist in North Carolina. I reside in the Triangle region of North Carolina. I own, operate, and am a therapist at a mental health private practice that focuses on queer mental health and queer relationships.
I love that. So how'd you get into that?
Oh gosh, where to begin? I have been a practicing licensed and marriage and family therapist since 2011, and in my clinical training in graduate school, I worked with many, queer individuals and queer partnerships, and just found the work so gratifying and fulfilling and meaningful. And so when I relocated from New York, it was that was at Syracuse University, and I moved to North Carolina in 2013. It was very important to me that I continued on in that work. And so for a period of time, I would focus on that clientele more and more, cases I was taking. And then in 2019, I decided I wanted to exclusively devote my whole practice to this community and open my own practice. And so I began as a solo entity of just me doing my thing. And I got really lonely and I wanted more people to talk about cases with and support and mentor. And so I decided to expand what is now our group to a group. And so we are a queer owned and operated entity at every level. We are small on purpose so we can stay connected to one another as a team. But there are now 7 of us, 7 clinicians, and that is the biggest it will ever be.
I love that. So when did you start adding other people then?
That was in 2021. So we got
Okay.
through the pandemic craziness in 2020. Everybody's doing fully remote therapy. We're all just like, what's going on here? And then coming out of that slightly, I was like, okay, I'm really lonely. I really want to help other therapists who want to do good work with this community,
hmm
learn and grow in this niche of practice. And it also is awesome to see people kind of launch into a state like we have and know that there are therapists out there who are really good at this and great at supporting our community.
hmm
Even if they've moved beyond my practice or decided to do their own thing, the goal is to have more of us here who are really, really great with this and really understand the very specific issues that queer people face.
That is really cool. And honestly, I want to connect you with somebody that works closely with us, Nurse Nikki. She is a nurse and she focuses a lot on queer things. She's interviewed a few people
Nice.
for a podcast that's coming up that's more like health based.
Okay.
So I don't know. I feel like I want her to have the resources of
Sure.
you guys so she can send more people to more areas. But I like
Cool.
that. I like that. That's kind of a similar idea to what we want to do, where it's like we want to keep it small, we want to keep the community here, but we want to grow enough that we feel like it's a family and like a community, not just you and me. So
Yeah,
I
I
like that.
learned a lot of lessons, in my earlier days when I was earlier in my career about the importance of feeling connected to something. And I think sometimes if organizations or entities, even with a great mission, can get really big, really fast, or outgrow themselves, you really lose a pulse on the actual real people that are doing this
hmm
important work with you, who they are. And it's harder to feel supported by each other because it becomes more of a machine, so to
Yeah,
speak. And that's
you're a
never
cog.
Yes, I've never wanted that feeling for myself or for the therapists that are
Yeah.
doing this really important but hard work. I want to be available, I want to be accessible, and I want to grow from them. And they've taught me so many cool, amazing, wonderful things, like all of them individually. And I'm like a better therapist because I'm a part of the team too. So, we have seen anywhere from kids to teens to adults to relationships of all formations. And I feel like the work we do is really critical right now, especially.
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna ask, have you noticed like a shift since you were doing this well before Trump came into office and some of the things that have happened? Have you seen like a huge shift in how therapy is going for people and what people are coming in for? Or is it mostly the same things? I know you
Yeah.
can't tell too much, but
Yeah.
the
I could
generals.
say I could speak kind of on a general basis. I'm a millennial,
Right.
and I've had a very canon millennial experience of adulthood where, maybe at the time I first was licensed and doing this, it was 2011. It was during the Obama administration, and we're like feeling a bright future ahead of us, kind of naively, of course, like
Of course.
supporting this community is going to be this like very picturesque, lovely, love is love. Like, everybody's just getting to be themselves and we get to be a part of that. How special, how wonderful. And it is when that happens.
Yeah.
However, I would even say starting probably at first Trump administration, perhaps that shift of, Obama's leaving office and here we go, rut-row, this is going to be bad. At that time, there was, collective concern, anger, social polarization. We now experience the seeds were sown. It was just beginning. We're unfriending family members on Facebook and taking a stand and, proclaiming values and identities, which was the beginning to me of this feeling in therapy of, oh, advocacy is a part of what I do now. Like, I'm no longer just somebody who gets to like cheer on and encourage this love and make relationships stronger. I am somebody who has to be a part of making things better for people, not just by therapy. And so I felt probably around the time I started the practice, my solo entity, that was a little more crystallized. And I'd see people coming in more of like, I've lost family members over this cultural split, or I feel unsafe now where I live more than I used to. This rhetoric is alarming and I didn't think people were, going to fall for it or, and so you start to see more in our field of people grappling with relationships, being
Hmm.
under-resourced. I mean, they've always been, but especially, and I would actually say queer people who are millennial aged and younger especially went through a lot of what I went through, which was, shoot, this future I imagined and these relationships I imagined, they're not going to happen maybe, or they're
Yeah.
never going to be what I thought. Right. And then if you fast forward to the COVID-19 pandemic beginning, and all the, I think the Capitol got stormed and something during that period of time, these things were just like, we're all on a screen, like, what the fuck is happening? Right. And,
Yeah.
collectively just like in shock and awe. And then this past year, 2025, even I'll say even 2024, when we knew something really big was going to shift no matter what. Um, that was the year that I felt like therapists and patients alike were all just almost stunned and bracing for impact and not knowing which way was up. And people are coming to therapy, obviously, to process the things that are going on and figure out how to make meaning and experience joy and experience the things they still hope to experience in, their time that they have. But I do see actually relationships still front and center as part of this work and
Mm.
people saying like I have to protect my love and like my partnership. I'm scared for my kids. I hate my family right now, but I don't want to because I need them because I'm
Yeah.
scared,
Yeah.
And so at every turn throughout society when things completely descend into madness, it's always relationships that we end up, I think, looking at and examining and wondering about. It's how we are as people. We're social creatures. We need other people. But
That's
relationships can be a place of solace too.
That's exactly. I feel like we've talked about that a lot with a bunch of different people in different ways.
Mhm.
And that how do you shift in your brain? You're like, I know that this person in my family supported something that is hurting a bunch of people, but also I depend on them, or but also I still love them. How do I like communicate with them? Like just figuring that out and realizing that like maybe, I mean, maybe we do need to cut people off sometimes, right? Obviously, never going to tell people that they can't cut people off, obviously.
Uh-huh.
But then sometimes it's like, I think this is a time for us to all come together as best we can and find common ground so that we can move forward as a country and as a community.
Yes.
And we've all talked about that so much. But how do you, I mean, relationships. So, how do you help people figure out that boundary for themselves?
Yeah. Well, as you already stated, it isn't one size fits all. And I
Hmm.
think that we have to ask ourselves hard questions about, is the boundary that I'm setting with this person based on me exclusively avoiding discomfort, right? I just want to avoid all discomfort I might experience with exposure to this. Or is it about I'm protecting who I am, what makes me fulfilled, experiencing joy, experiencing contentment, and this continuously, harms and threatens that. I think a lot of us, especially this social polarization that we're all now like held captive to, there can be a shift from outrage at our family or loved ones, and maybe a shift at outrage to the collective effort to do this to all of us, to
Hmm.
make us so polarized in our beliefs and the inability to work across the aisle metaphorically. And like, it's like Lord of the Flies, which one are you? One of these or one of these? And it's social media and all sorts of things have absolutely profited off of our, emotional
Oh, yeah.
reactions, division. Information is important, but it's meant to elicit emotional responses from us. And I think if we can keep our anger dialed in on the people who kind of engineered this divide, we can sometimes find common ground with loved ones. Boundaries also don't have to be all or nothing. It can be like, this is a topic or things that I don't want to discuss with you because they hurt when I hear, where you've landed in your own mind on these things. And people can
Hmm.
respect those things and can agree that, we've both been influenced so strongly to not be able to agree, but it doesn't mean I don't love you. Great. Sometimes that is possible. And we get to still like go do fun things together. Or if I'm a parent, I'll let you be with my kids and I'll let you be a grandparent and do these things. Or, if I need help, I'll allow you to support me because you want to, right? Like it can be things like that, or it can be as rigid as I will only see you at these times on these days and in this scenario, period. Or it is all or nothing sometimes. But I think it's so hard for us to see what's possible when we're too focused on being mad at each other
Mm.
and not both acknowledging all of us like this happened to us,
Yeah.
right? This happened to all of us, this like influence manipulation and sort of putting things together that shouldn't be lumped together, right?
Right.
Like queer rights are now somehow Antifa. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
and like what is Antifa, right? So like there's all of these ideas that get glommed together so that we all feel disconnected.
Right, right. Honestly, I mean that so I was just talking to my therapist a couple of days ago about this. Actually, not this specific thing, but what you said about just like them against us, like it's them putting us in this situation and it's not us against each other. And I said, honestly, the thing that stresses me out the most is that I'm tired of waking up every morning and just the first thing I think of is what do I have to fight against today? Instead of, okay, this is a normal day and then something happens, And I think we've all grown to expect that a lot. Obviously, that's
Our
not something we
nervous
can just
systems are
fix.
trained.
Yeah, exactly. It's not something you can just like fix like that. There's
Mm-mm.
so many different coping mechanisms that I've been given that have somewhat worked, somewhat. Anxiety is always there, but I think it's nice to hear it from your perspective that it's like you're seeing it from multiple people. So it makes us feel less alone when we hear that.
Absolutely. It is the case, I believe. Like I'm not, an expert on the tech sector and politics, but I can definitively say that there is a collective grief that everybody experiences, including queer individuals, on loss of connection, relationships. I was meeting with a patient who's a millennial, I think it was last week, and one thing that came up was this idea of remember when you used to be around conservative identifying like friends or family members and we might say like I don't see it the same way as you and oh okay whatever, but we would still enjoy our time with them, we would still have a meal with them, we would invite them to things, we wanted them there. And what a feeling of collective grief to be like fundamentally your presence triggers me,
Hmm.
right? Like I cannot sit in a space with you. I can't have a meal with you because you're unwilling to hear and acknowledge and see my experience. And to an extent, I'm unwilling to hear yours. Right. And I just, I know that the world is grieving relationships and people and connection. And I think our biggest act of resistance is love and is connection and is leaning into it. And despite everything, trying to have as much of that as we can. And there are people, to your point, they are too far gone. Like there's no turning that ship around, that being around you will ever feel safe and okay with me. And it is a tragedy. It's like a death. It deserves grief.
Yeah.
But the anger, I keep reminding myself as a queer person myself who's also going through this, that like where I direct that anger needs to be truly to the source a lot of the time, and not at myself, not at individual people, but at the shift that happened underneath our feet when we weren't looking.
True, true. And I feel like when you do have those moments of reacting because you're holding this much in your bucket and then one thing tips it over and you react poorly to somebody that you love and you care about, holding that accountability in yourself and saying, okay, let's have a conversation. I'm sorry I blew up. Like,
Hmm.
maybe we can't have a conversation about this and maybe we can't. And there are some times where you do more in those dinners because you know if you go to the dinner somebody's going to start a fight. Don't know if it's going to be uncle, don't know if it's going to be dad, mom, I don't know, but somebody's going to
Yeah.
start a fight. And so there is that collective mourning. I definitely see that with like us millennials. We definitely saw that dream, started going for it, and then realized we weren't going to have it.
That watched it brick by brick dismantle.
Brick by brick. Yeah. And then we see Gen Z and they're like, well, we saw it didn't work for you, so we're not going to do it the same way. And I admire them for that, being like,
Yeah.
you know what? Screw it. Like, I'm not going to work for the man, bust my ass that much. Like, I'm going to hustle, but
For
I'm going to do it
what?
for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to do it for me. Exactly.
Yeah.
So are you seeing, you said you have a large age range. Are you seeing a difference then in the generations? Are you seeing a bunch of like older people at all? I don't know
Yeah. No,
about
I
all
see
ages.
people kind of across the lifespan. My youngest patient right now, I want to say, is 11. I've seen younger kids, but I work with trans minors of that age because there's not many clinicians who are really skilled at specifically trans youth, which, as we know, is like a really hotly contested theme in our world right now. But I typically see teens and above if we're talking outside of that specific identity. So I think that the younger kids, we could also say they don't have as much access to information as adults, teens, young adults do, but they have more access to information than I ever did at
Yeah.
their age. And what they do know and the things they have say have honestly like knocked me on my butt a few times, being like, you're the coolest kid I've literally ever met. You're so smart. You know exactly who you are. You know exactly what you're walking into to an extent. And even though they're afraid, they're not as afraid as us. A lot of them have that kind of youthful twinkle in their eye on some level of like, I'm not going to tolerate this, and that's what's going to happen. Oh, and I both like, God, I have so much hope and admiration for Gen Alpha specifically, and like whatever they're going to create in the world and the movements that they might engage in. But we have to give them a chance
Mhm.
still to get there to be able to do that, which is the scary part. I think millennials, much like us, they're having heart palpitations. Like their nervous system has been cooked over and over and over again. And I think a lot of millennials are just arriving at this place of like, I can't do everything. I can't be everything. I can't do everything. I can't be everywhere. I can't save everybody. But what can I actually do if the
Yeah.
world I thought I was going to be in is not that, and the dreams and all the bricks have fallen? I'm staring at the rubble now. What do I want to do with the rubble? Where am I useful here? And defining our actual influence and lane is something I think our ancestors were a little smarter at. Millennials were told, you can have it all, you can be it all, the world's your oyster. If you try hard enough, you'll get there. People please, and you'll just find yourself where you want to be. And then we're kind of waking up. Our nervous system is tired. It's retirement. It's going to retirement. Doesn't want to do this anymore. Okay, so like, what do I have in me? Who can I be? What can I be a part of? And sometimes small, deliberate things are the best thing we can do. And we need each other. We figured it out. We need each other. We can't be hyper independent. We can't be a lone wolf in this world, even though some of us, tend to be. I need people. I need a hug. I need to relax sometimes and then get back in. This is a long marathon of a thing. It's not a sprint. And millennials, I don't think all of us were like dialed into that based on our upbringing until probably the last 2 years.
That's very fair. I feel like, too, because the generations before us, to your point, because the generations before us didn't have as much technology, I feel like they didn't think they had to do it all
Hmm.
because we started to get technology and it was like, oh, well, I can do so much more because it's all at my fingertips. And it's like, I find out all this information of the things I could be doing. And these are all so interesting. And this is all the people I want to help. And this is all the things that are right in front of your face. And then you're like, shit, the world is falling apart and I can't do anything. And then you're just sitting there scrolling on TikTok,
I'm
watching the world fall
overstimulated.
apart.
You know, it's
Yeah.
interesting. I've been talking to folks a little bit about this recently. Somebody said this. I want to give them credit, but I can't remember, which is driving me nuts. It maybe was on a podcast. Someone was referencing the idea that now our relationship to social media apps, whatever we'll call them, induces almost manic feelings, like mania. That
Hmm.
idea of like we maybe not that it was ever healthy, but a lot of people would like get on social media either at the end of the day or intermittently to like distract themselves from reality, take a break, right? Let me be entertained. Let me not have to think so hard. My algorithm's going to feed me interesting, cool, thought-provoking things. And all of a sudden in the last few years, you open these apps and it's just horror, outrage, misery, suffering, panic, alarm bells are being rung. And there's no way to get on apps like this for more than 5 minutes without being like, my anxiety's through the roof. I feel like there's nothing I can do. I'm paralyzed. I feel like I'm having a manic episode. I need to move out of the country. I need to go here. It's not doing what we thought it was doing to us.
Right.
It's just making us feel incredibly overstimulated and borderline manic sometimes. And so it's actually great that I think people are starting to wake up to that because then they get a choice. We're not as Pavlovian like conditioned to just pick it up and scroll, right?
Hmm.
Like, wait a minute. Do I want to feel like that right now? Is that really what I actually want out of this? Is it going to provide respite or distraction? Probably not. And then we can thoughtfully consider alternative ways to disengage, decompress, protect our peace, experience joy. But millennials grew up online.
Yeah.
That was all we knew. And it was wonderful. And you're right, it was the information age, and we all got really smart, but
Yeah.
there's a cost we might have incurred we didn't realize.
I think that when we grew up too, we were viewing technology as a tool. And like, I think Gen Z's benefit is they've grown up with it more as what it is
Hmm.
currently. So they see it less as there's so many Gen Z that I don't even see on their phones half the time. I'm like, did we just get sucked into this somehow? And so I see, like, we know it's capitalism, right? We know that that's
Yeah.
why the algorithms become what they are because it's a sensationalism thing. They want us to have the trauma, they want us to have the clicks, right? The headlines, all that stuff. And so the sensationalized stuff gets hit to the top, which sends you into that overdrive, just like you were talking about. And so another thing my therapist actually suggested, because I have the same thoughts you have, right? Of what can I do? There's nothing I can do. Everything's falling apart. There's nothing good happening, is actively go and look for the positive things.
Mhm.
And that's not just, oh, follow these people on TikTok, because that stuff doesn't necessarily pop up on your For You page. It's go to the happy news places, go watch the happy videos of the dogs that make you feel good. Like,
Seek
if
out
you want to be
specifically what
informed,
you are looking for.
exactly, exactly. If you want to be informed on stuff, okay, like if you scroll and you see something, go look it up. Don't just watch all the videos on TikTok because it's just going to make you feel something. It's not going to inform you.
Yeah.
And that's very important, I think, to use it as a tool that it was meant to be instead of the capitalist machine that it has become.
Yeah, and the algorithm, we have almost no control over what we might see every 10 seconds. Like if we're talking about like a TikTok or something,
Hmm.
you could go from watching the cute dog video and then 10 seconds later you're watching a genocide, right? Like you don't get to control what you see. And I think that to build on what you're saying, a lot of my patients have, acknowledged what we're talking about. And I have suggested, there's this like kind of virtue signaling online about how informed are you, how present are you with what's going on, and is there privilege involved and not? And it can shame people into overstimulating themselves
Yes.
because they feel a sense of moral obligation. So I have encouraged people, if that is a feeling you're having and you don't want to tune out, but you can't do these emotionally driven forms of news getting and info gathering, go to text-based news, from sources you trust, from people you feel like that are going to present a fair, write up, and get on Substack, get an email subscription to get emails of the news and read it when you have capacity,
Yeah.
right? Like Heather Cox Richardson, great example, right? She does a lot of written text-based things, audio things. It's not emotionally charged, but it's super factual and thoughtful. And, there's things that still we can like do with the
Hmm.
information. It's not just there to scare us. And things like that, I think, are more important than ever. And also, that's how we stop making money for these companies that have profited off of our divide.
Yeah.
Influencers are also in a really tough position because they might know the moral implications of making content like so sensational, but that's what they have to do to earn their money is get
Right.
those likes and clicks. So we also shouldn't be blindly trusting content creators with how and what they're showcasing to us because it's their job. That's how they get paid. And we
Right.
forget that.
Right.
And we develop these pseudo personal relationships to these people.
That is very fair. And I think, especially in the time right now when the job market is terrible, they're gonna keep doing it because they need the money because
I
they
went
can't get a
viral.
job elsewhere. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, how do you manage this? Because I think you said in the application that you are a mom.
I am a mom.
Okay, so how do you manage this? Maybe they're not old enough to be on tech yet, but like how do you talk them through or talk younger generations through getting on technology and because there's no way to avoid it. You can't unless you're a
Yeah.
hermit. You can't. You can't. So how
Yeah.
do
I
you
mean,
talk them through that?
totally. So I'm blessed that my oldest kid right now is 10 and my younger kiddos are 7. And so we have not allowed any social media access. I think, they have some communication with friends and other things on the device. And they mostly like play games. However, YouTube Kids is a minefield. This app is crazy and I don't like it, but my kids are really interested in like the YouTube for Kids version.
Hmm.
The things we have talked about with my kids whenever they might have seen a video on there that they're technically supposed to only show videos that are for a certain age range, but things slip through that kind of feel propaganda like. Whether
Right.
it's like, this video and there's a mom and a dad, and the kids are like, we're one little happy family. And this is how a good person should be. And, it's almost like playing out these little narratives of like, this is what a family looks like. This is what people should be. And I don't always agree with some of
Hmm.
the things that they might be like showing kids and presenting as like the normal, this is what things should be. But all of this information goes into their brain, right? At a young age. And so one of the things we've talked about is just that just because you might see something or hear something and find it interesting or thought provoking, it doesn't mean you have to agree. And it doesn't mean it's the only truth. It's the only story, right? Just like we read books from the library and there's many different kinds of families and people and kids. And they also are aware that the people who make videos online, any kind of video, they often make money from doing
Yeah.
so. Arch nemesis is ads. Like 100% of my kids see an ad for like some silly app or toy and they're like, I have to have this. I want this, right? It's so quick and they're so conditioned. And us like talking them through, like, hey, the reason you see these videos is so they can make money. They want you to buy this. They want you to be interested. Not to say it's not something you maybe could enjoy or whatever, but think about, if you had $5 and all of these things cost $5, like what would be the thing you would really want the most and why, right? Not just, I want it all, I have to have it all, they say I need it, but like, how do I want to spend my $5? And is this
Right.
worth it? And does it make sense? They, I think, are finally wising up to the idea that just because you see something or just because it comes in a certain format doesn't mean that it's like the thing. I have to have it. I'm going to miss out, or there's only one way to be. And
Mm.
even after the election, I mean, we had to talk a lot about what they might hear, what they might see out in the world, how people might be processing, talking about things. And one of the most important things I think that I've tried to instill in them is that just because somebody says one thing is the truth and it's their truth doesn't mean it's everyone's truth,
Hmm.
right? And that we don't need to judge other people or shame them or, belittle them for having a different truth, but we also don't have to conform if that doesn't fit, right?
That is that is a very good way of doing that. I feel like that also shows how simple. I forgot about the fact that like ads are that influential and that especially as children
Mhm.
because now ads come on and I just mute the TV. I'm just like, I don't
Yep.
want to deal with this. It's just so loud. I don't like it. And so I just zone out. But it is so ingrained in you. And like I think to that point, even when it's not a commercial, the little subconscious things
Mhm.
that like whenever you're watching TV and you only see families that are a man and a woman, when you only see white families, when you only see this and only see that, it very much does affect your subconscious. And we do very much have that that safety mechanism in ourselves where we don't want to be the other. We want to, the fear of missing out, I feel like, maybe this isn't
Yeah.
true, but the fear of missing out, I feel like that is built to help you survive, because when
Yeah.
you are missing
Keeps you
out,
safe.
yeah, you're not a part of the group, then that's, being part of the group is safer. And so I think this is a very natural thing. Propaganda is a very natural thing. And
Hmm.
in an essence, kind of everything is propaganda to a point.
Yeah.
It's just what it's being used for. And right now it's not being used for like very positive things. It's just like, and the divide's just getting bigger and bigger.
If anybody who might listen to this is interested in learning more about social media and like kind of intents and how it all works, the algorithms, there was a documentary, I want to say early to mid aughts, maybe 2012, 2013, called The Social Experiment. And they interviewed people who willfully left a lot of the social media companies because they were kind of morally outraged by some of the choices they were making. And they talk a lot about, obviously to get clicks and get monetized is part of the motivation, whether the ad, the video, but actually some of the people who are orchestrating these algorithms and are in charge of these operations, they don't even necessarily want to make money. They want to actually influence our decisions.
Yeah,
Like there is a collective effort to like have us make decisions they want us to make out in the world, which should terrify most of us because free will is like supposedly, what we want here, and autonomy and individuality, and even down to the ads,
hmm,
all the way up to, a little video of like a mom egg, a dad egg, and a baby egg, and they got married and they moved into this house and then they had a baby egg and it has a bow because it's a girl. And, you know,
yeah.
we should be questioning why are they showing this video? What's the purpose? What do they want a viewer to feel and to see and to think? And it's so entertaining, right? There's great music and great colors, and we should always question what we're consuming, right?
I love that. I love that. And sometimes, okay, so I'm an overthinker, as most anxious people are. Sometimes I'll literally sit there and I'll be like, maybe I'm just overthinking this. And then I'll be like, maybe everyone else is underthinking it, because there is so much that's going into everything that you are reading, and like to the point where like you can figure out the patterns if you watch TV enough. You know, the crime drama is going to go like this and then this and then this. You know who the killer is already. Like
Yeah,
the
it's predictable.
you know it. Yeah, you know it because you've watched so many of them, and it's not like you can't pick it out. You can't say, "Well, I know because of this." You just know the pattern recognition in your subconscious, and that's because your subconscious pays attention to these things that you don't understand
Uh-huh.
consciously. And that's what's happening all the time, and that's why when you walk up and you see somebody who looks like they just walked out of a farm, you assume that they are going to hate your existence, and then you're like, "Oh, actually, you're a very liberal dude and you're pretty sweet." Like,
You're a
cool.
queer farmer. We love those.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And so it's just those subconscious things where it's like, and my dad used to say this to me. I just thought this. My dad used to say this to me, which is funny because now he's a Trump supporter. So, but he used to say that the first thought that you have is what society wants you to think, and then the second thought that you have is the one that you truly have. So
Mhm.
if you immediately think something that's bad, like, oh, that guy in a hoodie is walking towards me, I should cross the street, that's scary. And then you're like, wait a minute, there's like a bunch of people around, I'm totally safe. And also, he doesn't even look scary, he's on his phone.
He's trying
That
to
does
walk down the road. Yep.
exactly. Like yeah, obviously sometimes it's a safety mechanism that your brain comes up with, but also sometimes it's just society being a jerk.
We've been taught to fear a lot of things subconsciously and
So many
consciously.
things.
Yeah,
So many things.
especially AFAB people, honestly, too. I think they've really done a good job of making us, feel vulnerable, not protecting us, but then making us scared, but then not doing any real things to make women feel safe in
Right.
actuality. Just live in
Right.
fear and, it's all up to you. Keep yourself safe from all these big scary things that are out there coming for you. So I totally agree. And to the original question you asked, yeah, millennials are unpacking this in therapy. They are. I would even say some Gen Z people are as well. We're
Mm,
all starting to think critically a little more, especially given the environment. We're staring at this rubble of this demolished dream. What do I want to build? How do I want to spend my time? Who gets my time? Why have I given it to them? And who are the people who matter, who I can connect with, who I can feel a part of something with, who I can feel supported by?
mhm.
Social media also isolates us, even though it was meant to connect us. I think it can make us feel very alone sometimes.
Yeah, that actually makes sense because I feel like I was just reading a book where somebody was like from a small town originally where everyone knew each other, and then she moved into New York where she's like, there's way more people, but I feel more alone. That's what
Mhm.
social media is to me. I feel like it used to be a small town where it was like, I'm just on here to talk to the friends that I've always had from high school and blah blah blah. And then now
See
it's
people who like cats like I like cats. Yep.
Yep. And now it's okay. Look at all these really pretty people. There's so many, and I'm just getting lost in the sea of everything. And I feel like I'm not an individual. I'm just a cog in the machine that is America.
Yeah. Yep. And so that I think that, this is the trend as well as relationships and looking at relationships and my personal rebellion, I guess, against the propaganda in my personal life is really directing my anger to the right places and understanding that not all hope is lost, but where is my influence? And it can't be like this big nebulous, unattainable thing that I hope for. It could be like every day I make people feel a little bit more secure in who they are
Mm.
and I help them find where they need to go. And that is an important thing. But the advocacy piece I talked about earlier, we live in North Carolina. We are a state that is nationally renowned for our nonsense politically. Unfortunately, I hate that that's one of our one of our notorious behaviors, but we have that. And I decided, after years and years of practice and seeing and talking to so many people who are being actively targeted by legislation, that if they can't advocate for themselves safely up here, like I should be a person who talks about what actually they need because I know because I've done my own research. I've spent time with them. I've heard countless stories from trans kids, trans adults, queer kids, queer adults, and who better to go up and at least try to say, here's what the data says, here's what we know in the mental health field. None of
Hmm.
these people are qualified experts in these areas. And, it can be defeating if that doesn't ultimately change the outcome, but it felt really good to extend that into practice outside of therapy too.
I like that. I like that.
See where that goes.
That's really good. Because I was just going to ask you, like, with that feeling of, okay, this idea of the future that I thought that I was going to have, this idea of connection that we thought that we were going to get,
Uh-huh.
we're all losing it. So you as a therapist, like what are you doing? And I guess the advocacy piece is one of the bigger pieces. Is there anything else that you're doing to give yourself a better future
Uh-huh.
through that mourning?
Yeah. Well, one of the things that is notoriously difficult for therapists is having time and space for personal relationships. We spend a lot of our days in versions of relationships with our patients. Maybe I'm with the staff on my practice who I do adore as humans and I feel very connected to, but we don't often sit with ourselves and our feelings as much as we preach. Maybe
Hmm.
we're compartmentalized pretty heavily. I realized a few years ago, like, I don't really have a strong community outside of work that I've built because of time and burnout. And you talk to people all day. Who wants to go talking to people all afternoon or evening or on weekends? But I really made a concerted effort to spend, I would say, as much energy as I spend on advocacy towards cultivating important friendships and relationships with people. Especially other queer people in particular. And that has been one of my greatest joys of the last year is finding myself. I'm like a self-proclaimed leader organizer. It's like I have a version of ADHD that's like do all the things. And so I'm always organizing groups of people, but I love to do it. And this was really life-giving. And I have a monthly dinner party with all of my queer friends. We do it potluck style, and those always fill me up a lot when I'm feeling really downtrodden or overwhelmed because I get to have that. I get to have those people. I get to laugh. We get to relate. We get to joke around. And it's like so much better than social media,
I
just
love
being
that.
with people in a real space.
It really is important. I think that's one of the main reasons that we started this too, is because we saw it. We're like, everyone's just mad at each other. And the best thing we can
Mhm.
do is connection. And I think, especially last year, like both of us, Coe, my co founder, and I, we both were like, we're in our little bubbles and that's the only people we see. And so, like, might as well just expand it. Let's try and find more ways for people to connect. And like, this is one. And being able to actually like do interviews where I'm learning from people and I've created some really good
Yeah.
friendships through these interviews. And so that's good too. Yeah. And then we're creating a Discord too. So by the time this is
Wonderful.
up, this is like a month from now, but like, by the time this is up, it'll already be going. But today we
Yeah.
just launched it officially. So we can actually do like
Wonderful.
chats and stuff like that. So it's more direct than social media. And people can actually like be like, yes, I do want to connect. Let's go have a dinner and
Let's
stuff
go
like that.
hang out IRL, right? Let's go meet up.
Exactly.
And millennials, I think, are reconnecting to that as well
Yeah,
as just people in general. And that is some of the places they also can't control, right? They can't
that's true.
control our time spent with people. If there we're inviting a group of our friends to our home or, we're hanging out with them at like a place that we choose, like being in the world with people we care about and feel connected to is such an important act of resistance because they want us to feel distant and disconnected and apart
Yes.
and lonely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Happiness and joy is the biggest resistance. What was it Toni Morrison said that rebellion is a whisper? Something like
Hmm.
that.
Yeah. That sounds right.
It's yeah, something like that. I know that's in that song somewhere. Um yeah, because
Hmm.
it's not about like yes, obviously fighting against it is very important, but the thing that keeps us able to fight against it is those connections.
Yeah. And as we all probably have learned by this point, that overstimulation, paralysis, almost manic kind of feeling takes actually away from our ability to be in this for the long haul.
Hmm.
One might argue we feel like we're at the very beginning of something in some ways still. And so if that is the case, man, we got to really stick together and have those people in our lives and have our community around us so that, if it does get hard or things are more stressful, we have places to turn and we're not dealing with that like we're completely alone too. We've got to forge those
Exactly.
relationships.
Exactly. And I feel like including different ages in that is very important too. Because
Hmm.
the more older people that I meet, older queer people that I meet and
Hmm.
hear their stories, and I'm like, you know what? You made it through the AIDS crisis. We can make it through this. Like, we
Yes.
can do this. We got this.
Yeah, and I was, our Raleigh Pride this past June this year, I always thoughtfully reflect on like, okay, what kind of reflection and themes and information do I want to center on this year? Like, are we celebrating Pride? Are we rioting for Pride? Like, what are we, what does it mean this year? And this last year to me was me personally like really centering on the idea of honoring the legacy of all the people who have known and have fought really hard for what we have and have had, and that even if things go backwards, like we are like on their shoulders, we are we've gotten the torch, they passed it, and I really feel super inspired and motivated by those people, and I kind of feel like I owe it to them, and I also owe it to the queer kids who are going to be me in 20 years to be
Hmm.
somebody they can look up to, right? And to be
Exactly.
somebody they're inspired by. It's so crazy to think we're going to be those queer ancestors in like 30 or 40 years, right?
Yeah.
Like that will be us. We are them, they are us. And so not losing sight of how important our stories are too.
Exactly, exactly. I love that because that's literally I wish I could just like take that and carry that with me to explain to everybody because that's definitely a large part of why I feel like it's so important to do this podcast and to do the magazine because I'm looking back and I'm seeing magazines from the 70s and from like the 90s, even from whenever I was growing up like in the aughts, right? And I'm like, this is really cool that I'm hearing true story, like stories from the people who were there doing the thing. Like
Mhm.
this is amazing. Like sometimes it's just pictures, sometimes it's ads. Like I'm like, this is really cool.
I find
And I
queer
want to be that.
history fascinating. And I don't think we've
Yes.
done a good enough job of teaching it because we were all with like rose colored glasses moving into the 2010s era, right?
Yeah.
And I think that we didn't do a good enough job probably of like conveying that. And media didn't help us either. But we have queer history books in my house. And that is, we actually, this last July 4th, we decided at my house to do sort of an educational experience for my kids about like who I perceive to be American heroes, people who we can like look up to and be proud of that they
Hmm.
are American. They were American people. And we learned a lot, me and my kids and my partner. We talked about different people who are alive now or been alive in the past. And I get to also give them that access to information maybe they wouldn't get otherwise. And lots of cool queer and non queer American heroes of the past to remember.
That is really great. I really like the idea that maybe our goal isn't to make our lives perfect, it's to help make the future generations' lives a little easier. And
Totally.
our ancestors definitely did that for us. I think we can fight through this
Yeah.
and get through it for the next generation.
And we don't have to know everything in store to still make sure we get to prioritize and pursue the things we hope to experience in our lives too. Like things might
Exactly.
be hard, they might be medium, they might be whatever, but we don't have to be so bleak either that like we won't get to experience certain things. It might not look the way we wanted and may not be this like easy, breezy kind of ride, but I get to feel connected to people. I get to see new things. I get to be surprised. I get to feel unconditional love, right? Like those are all things we deserve and we can pursue.
I love that. And you can take a break too. I think that's the most important thing to like for
Mhm.
somebody like me. I'm a perfectionist, right? I have OCD, so I'm like it has to be this, it has to be this, it has to be this. And whenever you get stuck in those, well, this isn't what I envisioned, so it's broken, it's okay. Step back, take a break, and you can come back and then make a new vision. You don't have to come back and then redo everything. You can just kind of move it. You can change it. You can alter it a little bit, and having that break can start that new reflection so you're not
Yeah,
nearly as stressed.
absolutely. It's like this phrase occurred to me. I don't know where it's from. Somebody probably said it, like the road to success is paved with failure,
Yeah,
right? Like you keep swinging and missing, but you're swinging. That's the point. You try and you hope. And then if it doesn't work out, you can always try again, right?
exactly. Exactly. Well, we are nearing the hour mark. So is there anything
Well,
else that you would like to share?
no, I mean, I said a little bit about my practice. It's called Horizons Marriage and Family Therapy. Our brick and mortar office is in Cary, but we do virtually meet with people all over the state. And I guess if I'm zooming out of just like my role in my practice, I just encourage queer people like who are ever listening to, take notes from those ancestors, get off of the apps if they can do it, and pursue what makes them feel like alive and fulfilled. And relationships almost certainly are always going to be front and center of where meaning and, connection lies for us. And, we can be angry at grandpa, but we could also maybe like be angry at the people who made grandpa feel the way he does now. Right. And maybe, I don't know, maybe that resistance collectively might lead somewhere too.
That is very beautiful. Let's empathize
Mhm.
with some people and let's try and come to the common denominators and let's
I
feel
saw a
it out.
really funny I saw a funny meme, and this is what it stuck with me. Like Fox News did to our parents what they thought rap music was gonna do to us as millennials. And that makes me laugh every time because it feels so true with what we're saying,
I saw
infiltration.
that with video games though.
Yeah, or video games, like the first person shooter games or
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah. Yeah, so, everybody gets radicalized somehow, I guess. But the point is, we it happened to us as much as we participated. And so that's it. That's the call to action. I so appreciate you having me and making this time. And I love your mission. And I hope that all these things you're creating are absolutely going to help and serve people and create more connection.
I really appreciate you and I appreciate the work you're doing. And I will share your information to Nikki
Cool.
so she can share it with her patients, hopefully, or anybody who needs it. And I really
Cool.
appreciate you sitting down. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it was great to talk to you, Becca.
Nice meeting you. Bye. I think you said it was easier to do it while it was still recording. Thank you so much for listening to the Queer Vision Pod. Chelsea was amazing. Admit it. Um, I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did and got as much out of it as I did for sure. If you would like to go support her, please go to her website and check her out. I will put it in the description. Um, or I'll put it right here. One of the two, whatever Chloe decides. But anyway, thank you so much for supporting Queer Vision. Go make a connection today. Go support your community and get off the apps for a little bit. But if you are going to be on the apps, go to queerlana.org, follow us, and go follow some featured queers as well. Like, follow, subscribe, do everything. Share, comment, watch it 500 times, and support us. Thanks. Okay, bye.